Hey guys, Bruno here from Flight Tech with another episode of Tycon Tuesdays. We're here with Seth Allen, and today we're going to talk a little bit about some DC to DC converters. Can you tell me a little bit about that, Seth?
Yeah, absolutely. So we deal with everything low voltage, right? Um, with DC converters, we're basically taking a low volt DC input, converting to a volt output. You got that thumbs up? Glad it wasn't just me. I'm glad that somebody agreed with me on that. So what we do is we designed a bunch of different DC devices, DC converter devices, to do just that. Let's say that you have a 12 volt battery bank or a 24 volt source, right? And you need 24 volt PoE output or 48 volt PoE output. So we designed various DC converters to do just that. You can up convert, down convert. We have a total of 38 different DC converters. I'm going to
Wow.
talk about a few of them today. But first, I want to talk about like our part numbers, right? And we try to make them intuitive. So
Mhm.
we start all of them with TP-DC dash or TP-DC DC, right? Uh, then the next part number would designate what's the voltage input. The next two would be the voltage output. And then G stands for gigabit. We have both gigabit and non-gigabit. We have the D would stand for 802.3 AF, AT, or BT compliant. And then we have HP for high power, VHP for very high power. Okay. So I want to talk about a few different devices. The reason why those are important is because each manufacturer, camera, access point, they'll all have different voltage requirements, right? And so it's important to pay attention to what power supply or what kind of power you're giving to it. It might be a high power device, right? You need 30 watts. And so if you're giving a 15-watt power to it, it's not going to work. The reason they did this is uh, when I talked about passive versus compliant, the passive device that will take basically what power it sends is what the device is going to receive. Well, people were destroying their radios, their devices, because they're putting in too much power. So IEEE came out with the standard 802.3 AF. So AF is designated that there's now a handshake between the power injector and the device. So it'll send the power, and the device will read it and say, is this 802.3 AF? Is this 48 volt? It'll send it back. And then you're going to get the fireworks saying, having a big celebration. Yep, it
There
worked.
you go.
Uh, but then people say, well, we need higher power because AF is just designated up to 15, 18 watts, right? Well, then I need a bigger power, high power access point or a bigger camera, right? PTZ. So they came out with a standard 802.3 AT. Now, AT is backwards compatible. So if you have an AT device, it'll still work with AF devices. It's just capable up to 30 watts. Uh, then they said we need more, right? PTZ cameras can have 60-watt draw or even more. And so IEEE came out with the 802.3 BT standard. That's going to be up to 90 watts. Okay. And again, also backwards compatible. So we design different devices based on the needs of the market. So I'm going to talk about a couple of them. This is our most popular device. This is the TP-DC-DC 1224. What that does is it takes 9 to 36 volt DC input in that terminal block. You put in your RJ45 data cable, and it combines to give you one PoE output at 24 volts.
Mhm.
This one is rated up to 20 watts. Should have done my homework ahead of time, but it's a 20 watt capability. So anything that's under the 20 watts, it'll be able to handle, right? So you're powering some access points from a battery bank, right? 12 volt, you got 12 volts coming out of your solar controller, or 24 volts, right? This will handle 9 to 36 volt input and give you that 24 PoE. Now there is a gigabit version as well. So if you need extra throughput or if you have throughput available, that'll do it for you. Next, we got our high power version, something similar. This is going to be our 1248 GD-HP. So it'll take in 10 to 15 volt DC input and give you 56 volts. I know it says 48 in the part number, something I've always argued with, but because it is the standard 802.3 AT, typically once you hit that AT mark, 48 rolls into the 56 volt. Okay.
Mhm.
And the devices will be able to handle that. This is rated up to 30 watts. So you're going to have plenty of power for those different, access points. They're going to take a little bit more power, or those cameras, right? Some PTZs cameras. So
So
next, let's, yeah,
one
go
of the
ahead.
questions I have here, though, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of different voltages and amperages and stuff. I mean, how are you supposed to know how much you have to put in to make sure to get what you need to get out of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most manufacturers have different voltage inputs, right?
Mm,
So they have different voltage, I should say, requirements. So some might be a 24 volt passive. And I'll just say this, 24 volt is always passive. There's no 802.3 compliant for
yeah.
24 volt, right?
Mhm.
Some might be a 48 volt. Some might say PoE plus or PoE plus plus. That's always going to be a 48 volt. PoE plus would be 30 watts. PoE plus plus is 60 watts. So the data sheets will say, hey, this camera needs 48 volt, or they'll say 802.3 AT, and they'll say the draw is 25 watts. You're going to know, and then you figure out what's my voltage input. I've got a 12 volt battery bank. Then you can use this device, right? So you've got your 12 volt in, data input, and then that'll give you the 48 volt to provide power to that device. And if it's a standard, then this is your guy. If it's a passive radio, then you just go the 1248G-HP, right? Take out the D in the part number. So pay attention to the data sheets. The manufacturers will tell you how much power it needs. Now, if you're worried, like let's say the device says it's a 25 watt draw. We don't have a DC converter that's exactly 25 watts output. That's okay. Go err on the side of more power, right? Wattage is, the device will just pull the wattage and current that it needs. It's not going to pull more than it needs to damage itself. What you really need to pay attention to as well, though, is the voltage. That's what can actually damage the device, is providing too much voltage. And I've even seen devices that were damaged when it received too little voltage. Oddly enough, it was a 48 volt device. Somebody plugged in a 24 volt device and it damaged the radio. So pay attention to the voltage. If you're getting not enough current, it just won't power the device. And you say, all right, what's going on? Our labels clearly show what your voltage input can be, and if you have, and what kind of current you have at that output, at the output. So you can pay attention to that. But if you've got too much current, too much wattage, don't stress. It's not going to damage the equipment. You just need sufficient enough to run your cable line to get to your device.
Got it. And then plus, I mean, like you mentioned, there's the whole handshake about 802.3 protocol. So, I mean, if you're running anything related to that, like this one here is a 56 volt, but if the switch for somewhere, the device, the access point for some reason only needs 48 or whatever, the 802.3 will actually do those changes internally and only provide what it actually needs to provide.
Well, it's not going to change it down to 48 volt, but if a device is 802.3 AT compliant, it'll take 56 volts.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
there is a company, and we designed a specific model just for them, that their device can only handle 48 volts. It can't handle that 56. So if you need that, we've got that device too.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, cool. And then there's another one here, this big guy here. What is this all about?
So this is our big boy, right? And you'll notice these black tabs on the side. All of our devices can be DIN clip mounted. So we've got little DIN clip connectors. This one does come with it, so you can clip it directly to your DIN rail. This will take in 40 to 72 volt input on the wire terminal. You've got your input RJ45, and this will give you 802.3 BT power up to 90 watts off of this one PoE port.
Wow.
So this is our big boy. This is going to power those massive PTZ cameras that's just constantly whirling, right? It's constantly moving in motion, or that big access point that's going to shoot that 30, 40 miles, but it needs 60, 70, 80 watts of power, or obviously up to 90 watts. Initially, there's not going to be a lot of devices that need 90, but there are going to be some, and the BT standard is rated up to 90 watts.
Okay. So is this going to power like a TV or a computer or something like that?
It's not. Those devices are all considered AC input,
Okay.
right? So when you have like a 2-prong, 3-prong device, right? Your television, your refrigerator, your computer, right? Plug. Those are all considered AC or alternating current. That's going to be your 120 volt AC. So these are going to be strictly DC power. You could plug into an inverter, and then that'll invert DC to AC. Those aren't very efficient, so we try to avoid using them when we're like doing our solar projects, right? We've talked about solar in the past, so we try to avoid the inverters, but this is just going to power your 12 volt to 72 volt, convert to up to 56 volt PoE.
So the highest voltage you guys will do on the DC to DC line is 72, you said?
72 volts.
Gotcha. And as the name implies, DC to DC. So this is all
Correct.
DC in, DC out,
That is
72
correct.
volts or less, whichever way in or out is how we need to think of it. Okay.
Right.
All right, cool. Very, very interesting devices. But I think you have another one there that I don't have here. That's
I
a
do.
pretty interesting one.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one. We try to be versatile, right? All of these other devices we talked about, it had a voltage input range that were minimal based on what you know your project is, right? But we've had some people say, well, I have 3-4 different sites and it might be 12 volt, 24, 48 volt. You have one part that'll handle all of those. And the answer is yes. So this is our DC-1256 GD-BT. This will take 10 volt to 60 volt DC input. So this one device could be used at all your different sites because it'll handle that wide voltage input range. It'll give you an 802.3 BT, but this one's rated up to 70 watts. So the standard, like I said, is BT standard is up to 90. This particular device will handle up to 70 watt PoE output.
Got it. Interesting. So that's a pretty versatile device that you can just kind of have, in your truck or work bag and kind of run into a situation, just pull it out and plug it in and be able to power something rather quickly.
Absolutely.
Instead of trying to figure out the voltages and stuff. So
right. Yep.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, very interesting devices, the DC to DC line. Definitely excited to be working with these products to offer these unique solutions to people, right? I mean, there's always, some project somewhere that has some special requirement. That's another question. Most of these or all of these, are they temperature hardened? They can work in like extreme temperatures. What's the deal with that when you're doing those kind of projects?
They can. Obviously, there's going to be a different range for each device, but these are all hardened plastic. This is actually a metal enclosure, and that's why we took off one of the DCs in the part number. We wanted to know, because it used to be a hardened plastic, and we decided with that bigger range, we wanted to go with a hard metal or go with a metal enclosure. But they all do have a wide temperature range. You're going to be like, and each spec sheet will show, but we have from -40. I almost said volt because we've been talking so much about voltage. So -40 degrees up Celsius. Well, I guess 40 is Fahrenheit and Celsius. I think that's equal to each other. But up to I think it's 70 Celsius or 140, 150 degrees. So obviously the spec sheets will show what it can handle. But it is a wide temperature range, absolutely.
Right.
Because these are going to go in enclosures that are either in cold environments or extreme heat, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it definitely sounds like it's the kind of situation where, so maybe your wiring is limited, or maybe what you have available to you at that site is limited. So that's where these kind of creative devices will come in and help you solve those problems, right? So
absolutely.
Definitely. Very interesting. Like I said, we're very excited to be working with you guys on this DC to DC line, and definitely interested in seeing what people out there might have to say about it. So if you guys can, leave a comment and let us know how you guys might use this in your projects and whatnot. So good. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Hey guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can get the latest from FlyTech. Thanks.